So, good evening, everybody. Going to start a little bit early, to ensure that we are running on schedule tonight. So, my fellow members, supporters and comrades, it gives me great pleasure to stand before you this evening. It's great to see so many familiar faces in person and great to know that many of you are joining us at home remotely as well. So before I start, I'd like to pay tribute to the entire head office and Leinster House team for all of their work and dedication over the past year and a half. So whether working in the office, on the road, or from home, their work ethic and commitment never wavered, and I'm so grateful for all that they do. And in particular, I would like to give a shout out to Aideen Blackwood for all of the work she did in helping organise this weekend's conference. So I've only had 5 minutes up here, and there's lots I'd like to get through, so I'm going to focus on 5 things. The first of those is our members. So since our last full conference, the membership of this party has contested local and European elections, 4 by-elections, a general election, Shannon elections, Shannon by-elections, and most recently a Dublin-based South by-election. And I think I'm not the only one who will never tire of saying Deputy Ivana Bacik TD. And it was the members of this party who put teams together to support each and every candidate who stepped up, who put their name on the ballot paper and put themselves before the electorate of this country. It was the members of this party that helped form policies and platforms on which these candidates would stand. The same membership who campaigned and canvassed door to door when that was possible, and through countless innovative remote campaigns when the pandemic forced us all to reorganise our lives. Our members are the engine which drives all of our election campaigns. We have tasted bitter defeat, we have relished our sweet victories, and there will be many more campaigns and elections yet to come with the starry plough of our party proudly on the ballot paper. The second thing I'd like to mention tonight is our members, and in particular a certain member from our Wexford Town branch, a member nearly all his life, I think it'd be fair to say. Brendan Howlin proudly led this party during one of our most challenging periods. He did so with the grace, professionalism and statesmanship that is testament to the character of the man, and we thank you, Brendan. Another member I'd like to mention is from our Ardara Dinny O'Donnell branch. Alan Kelly has led the Labour Party since April 2020. At a time when the country was shutting down, Alan injected a sense of energy and enthusiasm into the party. Under his leadership, the entire Parliamentary Labour Party team, our councillors and our local area reps have ensured that the values of this historic party are at the heart of communities across Ireland. I'd also like to pay tribute to 3 particular members, to Jack O'Connor, to Gina Doolan and to Sinead Ahern. All 3 of these members gave the party great service as party chair, party treasurer and as vice chair, and I think Sinead might be tuning in from home, so if you are, hello Sinead. We thank you all, and I also want to wish Lisa Connell, who I think we will all agree did a fantastic job this weekend, and to wish Conor Power the very best as they step into their new roles. So the third thing I would like to speak to you about tonight is our members. So while the pandemic was an extremely difficult time for us all, it also forced us to change the way in which local branches connect and organise forever. I want to thank the many members who set up virtual meetings for the first time, who created constituency WhatsApp groups, or even called around to help connect our colleagues and comrades who may not be as tech savvy as they would like. Thank you all. Sadly, there are members who are no longer with us, and we think of their friends, their families and loved ones this evening too. So I only have another minute or two, and there's some very important things I'd like to mention while I still have the time, and one of those is our members. So our numbers are growing, my friends. Since the beginning of the pandemic, hundreds of new members have joined us, driven by a desire amongst the citizens of this country for a fair, responsible and trustworthy left voice. People are returning to the party that has stood for the working man and for the working woman since before this republic was established. And it gives me great pride to report to you today that it is women in particular, women who value equality for all, who value our children's education, who values her community's access to healthcare, who values these and many more issues. It is her and those like her who are joining us in ever-increasing numbers. This year, for the first time in the history of our party, more women have signed up as new members than men. And to each and every one of those women who are in this room tonight or tuning in from home, I want to tell you that this party is your home, and there will always be a place for you here. So there were 5 areas I wanted to cover in my 5 minutes, and I'm going to finish on this. Throughout the day, motions have been debated, policies set, officers have been elected, friends, colleagues and comrades have seen each other perhaps for the first time in a long, long time. Many of our dearest comrades are joining us remotely, and some of our newest comrades are joining us for the first time. It is each and every one of you that makes this party the great party that it is. It is the members up and down this country who organise, who engage with their communities, who look around and seek change in their lives and in the lives of their fellow citizens. The membership of this party is one of a steadily growing number of people who believe that a better country is possible, and not only believe it, but are willing to step up and do something about it. We are only as strong as our members, and given all of the conversations I've had over the past 2 days, all of the faces I've seen here today, all of the enthusiasm, the creativity and the drive among the membership, given all of that, I have never been prouder of the membership of the Labour Party or more hopeful for our future. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Well, comrades and friends, after that great address by Billy Sparks, I think she deserves a round of applause. A big round of applause. For our wonderful General Secretary, Billy Sparks. And as Billy said, tonight is about honouring members. This next session is always a highlight of Labour Party conferences. It's when we honour our members who have given such long service, and we call this, as we all know, the Long Service Awards. And I'm really proud and honoured for the first time to have been invited to give the Long Service Awards. And it's going to be a real treat to hear some of the personal stories about some of our most distinguished and most seasoned and most experienced members who are here before us this evening. So I know you're going to want to give a lot of applause, but I'm going to ask you in the interests of time that we give everyone a big round of applause at the start and at the end of the presentations, if that's okay. And And I just want to thank all of those who nominated members for Long Service Awards, and we'll do them by constituency. So we'll start now, and I just want to thank as well Chloe and Rachel, who are here to give the award, giving the awards out. And we are going to start with Nuala and Niall Green from Limerick and Dublin Bay North. Between them, Niall and Nuala Green have clocked up 110 years in the party, and they have been active in many constituencies. Indeed, Niall was described by the Irish Independent in June 2006 as one of the Labour Party's best-known backroom strategists in the 70s and 80s, which is a real accolade. He also served as Jan O'Sullivan's election agent between 1998 until 2020, and Nuala has been active since 1968 in the party and was very involved in the first document of the Labour Women's National Council. So Nuala and Niall Green, you're very welcome to receive the first Long Service Award. Our second awardees are from Dublin Bay North. Our second set of awardees are from Dublin Bay North. Eamon McAteer, Michael O'Halloran and Shay Mills. Eamon was a founding member of the Artane Montrose branch of Dublin North Central in the late 70s, and he and his late wife Jerry opened their home to all party volunteers at polling stations on election days, and I'm told there are many fond memories, Eamon, in Dublin Bay North. Shay Mills joined Labour in 1971. So Shay, I understand you're celebrating your 50th anniversary in the party this year. Shay is a stalwart of Northside Labour, and my confidence in Dublin Bay North tell me that when Shay agrees with you, you know you're on the right side of an argument. And finally, Michael O'Halloran from Dublin Bay North. Michael, of course, has been a very well-known member of the party since 1952, which is an astounding 69 years for those who are calculating it. He was a candidate in 4 general elections and narrowly missed, I'm told, being elected in 1989 by 220 votes. And I know just how bitter that sort of defeat can be. In 1984, he was elected Lord Mayor of Dublin. And when he retired, he became very busy indeed in establishing the Irish Senior Citizens Parliament to give a voice to older people. So Eamon, Michael and Shay, again, we're delighted to present you with awards. Thank you, comrades. I think we will do the applause after each group. It's too hard not to, and we will have time. Next, from my own home constituency here in Dublin Bay South, delighted to honour Joy Bagster and Mary Flynn. Joy is a long-standing member who has no excuse for not going to Rathmines branch meetings, as they take place 2 doors away from her own house. So no excuses, Joy. She joined Labour originally because of Rory Quinn, so he was the influence on her at the time, and we are all delighted that Joy intends to keep attending meetings for another few years yet. As for Mary Flynn is an icon within Labour, a long-time member of Labour Women who has worked tirelessly over the years to ensure that feminism always remains at the forefront of our campaigns. Mary worked night and day throughout the by-election this summer, transporting leaflets and canvassers around, and we are forever grateful to her for that. She always arrived, like the cavalry, just in the nick of time. Thank you, Mary. Next to Dún Laoghaire and Jane Dillon Byrne, who, like so many others, needs no introduction. Jane proudly served the people of Dún Laoghaire for 40 years, from 1974 until her final election in 2014, where she lost out after a mammoth recount by only 9 votes, an even tinier majority. In 1975, she became the first woman Cathaoirleach of Dún Laoghaire, to be followed by many others, and she ran in the European elections in 1979 and for the Dáil in the 80s. And of course, as we all know, Jane has been an active sea swimmer since long before it became a trendy lockdown activity. And what's perhaps less well known is that Jane was one of the brave women activists who forced long overdue change at what was formerly the gentlemen-only swimming spot at 40 Foot in Sandy Cove. So thank you, Jane. On behalf of all us women sea swimmers, Gur Magat. Apologies, colleagues. We're just gone a slight out of order. Apologies. And sincere apologies to Eamon Drummond. We skipped the crucial constituency of Dublin Midwest, so I'm very sorry, and an extra round of applause. Eamon first joined Labour in 1966 and served as chairperson of the Dublin South West constituency, which of course later became Dublin Midwest when Clondalkin became part of the new constituency. So thank you on behalf of Dublin Midwest, Eamon, for your service. Next, we go to Wexford, and we have 3 nominees in Wexford. Bridget Halligan-Neville, Mary Fallon and Phyllis Gordon. And Bridget is an active trade unionist and has been a pivotal member of Wexford Council of Trades Unions for decades. She remains active today in trade union activities throughout County Wexford, particularly on local community development. Mary Fallon is a lifelong Labour member and activist and another constant campaigner who has walked more miles in town estates and country boreens for Labour candidates than anyone else in Wexford. Always cheerful and determined and a delegate to every party conference, Mary is the embodiment of the loyal member that sustains this party. And last but not least from Wexford, Phyllis Gordon, who I'm told was born into the Labour Party because Phyllis, your late father, Kevin Keogh, I'm told, was treasurer of the Wexford Town branch for many years, going back indeed to Brendan Corish's time. And Phyllis is always among the first to gather in the Corish Memorial Hall for election canvasses. I'm told there's not been one election over the past 40 years that you've not been involved in. Thank you for your long service. Next to Dublin South Central and Charles Foster. Charles has been a long-time trade unionist and Labour member, not good enough just to be in one jurisdiction, but in two. He joined the British Labour Party in the summer of 1983, just after the Tories inflicted what was then the party's worst ever post-war defeat. In 1998, he went to work under the legendary Peter Mandelson in the Communications Directorate until the Labour historic landslide election of 1997. And having worked like someone in the thick of it, great comedy, and having done his job in electing a progressive Labour government in Britain, he moved to Ireland later that year and has been active in Dublin South Central in every local and national election since, and indeed was very active on the by-election this summer too in Dublin Bay South. So thank you, Charles, for your service. We move from Dublin South Central to Tipperary and to Johnny Whelan, who has been a trade union and Labour Party activist all his life. Johnny worked in the silver mines as a young man, finished his working life in Procter & Gamble in Nenagh, in the lovely Nenagh town, and was the SIP2 shop steward there for many years. He has been a long-time member of the SIP2 branch in Nenagh, a branch synonymous with the Labour Party in Tipperary. And indeed, he canvassed for 30 years for John Ryan. Alan Kelly, our party leader, tells me he simply would not be a TD without Johnny's advice and help. Thank you for your service, Johnny. Our next group is from Kildare South constituency, and we have John Callaghan, Maureen Cullen and Kathleen and Paddy Phelan. You're very welcome. John has been a member of the Labour Party for over 50 years, and both his parents handed down their commitment to the party to all the Callaghan family. At election time, John, I'm told you're famous for using your farming and sheepdog handling skills to deter any dog who may wish to harass our canvassers. And I'm told that with your skills, no door goes unknocked, however ferocious the canine guard. We could have done with you in the by-election. Maureen Cullen joined Labour in Ballator in 1976, some 46 years ago, following in the footsteps of your late beloved husband Ollie, who I'm told had joined the party in 1975. Maureen continues in her role as secretary of the Ballator branch, and my sources tell me the best part of the branch meetings after the obligatory row, which we never have in Dublin Bay South, is the tea and cake in her home. Paddy Phelan from Kilkenny unfortunately cannot be with us himself tonight in person, but his long overdue award will be collected by his loving wife Kathleen. You're very welcome, Kathleen. I know you are a proud Kildare woman who is also due your own award in your own name. And I'm told Paddy joined Labour in Kilkenny in the 1950s and is still a proud member as he enjoys his 90th year. That's wonderful. I'm told you joined Labour 61 years ago as a very young girl, a child, following in the footsteps of your late father, George Doran. Kathleen, I'm told you're a pleasure to canvass with. You always enjoy the banter of canvassing and even see the good in the very few people we meet at doors who may not agree with us. So thank you to you both. And the last recipient in person, but by no means the least, from Dublin Central, we have the great Seamus Moriarty, who... Seamus, I know you've been active for well over 30 years in Dublin Central, hugely involved in all election campaigns at every level, local and national, and that you've held roles at every level of the executive in Dublin Central. Again, my sources tell me that you are a great font of wisdom and a source of encouragement and advice to all candidates, new and seasoned, in the constituency. So again, thank you for your service. Comrades, we've honoured just some of our wonderful long-standing members tonight for Labour, and I know you'll agree with me that this has been a real highlight to have recognised and acknowledged the enormous level of service that has been given on a voluntary basis by so many over such a long period. And just listening to the length of time that many of those with us tonight have been members, one can't help but be humbled by that extraordinary level of commitment to this great party. So I want you to join with me again in giving all of our recipients a really big round of applause. And I want to just acknowledge also those who are nominated for awards but who cannot be with us in person tonight, some of whom I know are watching us online. And just to say a big shout out to you, I'm going to read the names of those recipients out, and I know all want to give a big round of applause once those names have been read out. And again, thanks to all who nominated members for these awards and who gave me such wonderful vignettes and synopses of their experience of them and stories about them in the party. There was a lot more detail and a lot more lovely stories to be told, I know, as well. So those who cannot be with us tonight are as follows. Michael Devan from Cork North Central. Oh, why not? Joe Shields from Louth. From here in Dublin Bay South, the brilliant Alice O'Sullivan. And again in Dublin Bay South, someone who I know we all know with enormous fondness and has worked so hard for the party for so long, Denise Rogers. From beside the Lee, from Cork South Central, Jeff O'Sullivan. From County Louth, we have Tom Minogue. From Dublin South Central, Tom Wall. From Cork East, John Mulvihill. And finally, again from Dublin Bay South, a big thanks to John Marr. Comrades, that concludes the Long Service Awards this evening. I know we will just have a very short few minutes, I think, before we... 5 minutes, I'm told 5 minutes, just to settle yourselves in your seats before we start the welcome for our party leader, Alan Kelly, TD. So I might ask you just to take a few moments just to relax and to take a breath and behind your masks, and we will be back in a few moments on stage. Gur Magrath. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You want to sit down for a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was I had a chat with Alan and I said, don't worry now, Dermot is there. He follows you.
I know. Thank you. It's just right in my mind.
Yeah, no, I did. I said, he'll go whatever speed you want. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, if he doesn't control the speed, you control it. It's pretty. Awesome, would you take a picture of us, Dermot? Look at us. Check. 3 minutes, Ivana. So. Try. No problem. Yeah, I'm going to put her on and give her a bit of a delay with her coming on to take his, he'll take his applause a bit on stage, and then I'll bring her up, just so he's, About 2 minutes now, is it? So feel free. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, we're not long to starting. Thank you very much. If everyone could take their seats, thank you very much. So I might just cue her to walk into position, Dave. She's just at the side here. Is that all right, or would you like her to be on stage? Okay, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, please, everybody. Thank you very much. And a bit of quiet, please, in the room. Thank you very much. Check, we have 1657. 30 seconds. So go up there, and then we'll go over there and give you a thumbs up, okay?
Okay, thanks. Comrades, Akarja Galer, Fáilte Romhaibh, it is an honour for me to address you all tonight and to be asked to introduce our party leader, Alan Kelly. Much has changed, comrades, since we last came together to debate, to discuss and to rebuild. After what has been a challenging time for all our communities as we cautiously emerge through this terrible pandemic, we've been able to pursue our process of renewal with increased vigour, and we are stronger for the discussions that have taken place this weekend. That's what makes our party special. We can honestly debate issues, and we've seen that this weekend. We can disagree with colleagues and comrades, but we do so with respect. And in an increasingly divided world, that is a precious trait and one we should all value. We are certainly not a party whose members simply repeat or parrot a line from on high. We are a party that thinks, that debates, that has room for dissent and that values diversity. And long may that continue. Now, as spokesperson on climate and on childcare, I know that the ideas put forward this weekend will shape our policies on these issues and on the other vital issues, on housing, on care, on community, and on work, that are impacting every person, every family and household in our country today. Now, something else has changed since we last convened a conference. I've got a new job. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The Dublin Bay South by-election has proved that we are a winning party. We have proved that when we work together, we have the talent, imagination and determination to take on the big parties and win. But winning is tough. It needs a team, it needs ideas, and having the guts to do something new doesn't go amiss either. But this summer we proved that we can beat all comers, from May Féiners to Sinn Féiners. And I want to thank each and every one of you who came out in such a committed and steadfast way to canvass from this city and this country, the great team in Dublin Bay South, and all of you for your immense support, your generosity and your kindness. Gur maith agaibh go léir. Thank you. Working together, we proved that our values, our left-wing principles, our belief that this country and this planet need radical change to give every child a better future, all these resonate with people and with communities. And we need to carry that belief and that campaigning spirit through to the next election. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce the person who will lead us into that election, our party leader, Alan Kelly. I know that Alan is delighted finally to have the opportunity to travel the country, to meet party members and supporters, and to speak with their communities. And in this way, more and more people are getting to know the Alan Kelly that I know. A person who is deeply rooted in his beautiful hometown of Nenagh, whose commitment to family and community are at the root of his political philosophy. A person who is hardworking, committed, and resolute. A man who's determined to rebuild our party, to strengthen our voice, and to ensure that our values of equality, solidarity and community will shape this nation over the next decade and more. Comrades, it has been good to get together again this weekend. It has been refreshing to hear new ideas and new voices. The challenge before us is significant, but we won't waver. Ireland has always needed a genuinely progressive, social democratic and socialist alternative to deliver real change, to deliver a new deal on climate, on care, on housing, on health, on education and on work. And the Labour Party is that alternative. Carja, 100 years ago, our elected Parliament, Dáil Éireann, took a vital constitutional step towards independence. At this historic juncture, a century on, we should take inspiration from the founding ideas of our republic, non-sectarian, inclusive, internationalist. A republic shaped by the vision and empathy of that great Labour leader, Tom Johnson, whose democratic programme placed a priority on the welfare of all children, pledged to constantly improve the condition of workers, and established the principles of liberty, equality and justice for all as the cornerstone of our democracy. Principles worth campaigning for, comrades, principles worth winning for. And that's the task before us. It's a task to which we are all committed, and it's the task to which our leader, Alan Kelly, is committed. And he is working tirelessly to achieve that for us all. Conference, please welcome our party leader, Alan Kelly, TD.
Friends, thank you. I might be from Tipperary, obviously the home of hurling, as you all know, and the Labour Party, but I'm so proud to speak to you tonight from the historic Round Room here in the Mansion House in Dublin. Over a year and a half ago, I was elected leader of the Labour Party, the proudest day of my life. Little did we know what lay ahead of us. COVID has changed everything, and it's still with us. It brought us back to our communities and our core values. I'm from a small village called Portroe, just outside Neenah. We all rallied together, like everywhere else. Neighbours looked out for each other, got the groceries, made sure people were okay. We didn't know what lay ahead. But out of fear came a great strength, our Mehel, and we are coming through it together. But it did make us question who we are, what we want from our lives, and what we want from our futures, what kind of Ireland we want to live in. I know personally it made me reconsider everything. How much time I spend with my wife, Regina, and my kids, Eva and Senan, and my elderly parents, Nan and Tom. It made me think about what kind of Labour Party I want to lead. And I thought of people who inspire me and motivate me. My parents leaving school at 11 and working every odd job to give me an education and every chance in life. And my good friend, Vicky Phelan. Vicky, you are so much in my thoughts tonight. We will always be grateful for your struggle for truth for the women of Ireland. I think of people like Niamh Brannock, who helped me and so many others go to college with 3 third-level education. People like Jim Kimmy and Mervyn Taylor and their inspiring work on equality. And not to forget Tom Johnson, the first leader of the Labour Party in the Dáil, and in my view, the most underappreciated politician in Irish history. And recently I've been able to get out and meet with people again. What I heard was the stories of hard-working people struggling to get by, listening to families in Donegal and across the northwest with crumbling homes because of mica, hearing from people in Maynooth locked out of the housing market, speaking with students in Cork who can't find digs and struggle to afford college, and in Dublin, the frustration of young healthcare workers because of the soaring cost of living. A hunger for action and change. A hunger for a real alternative, a hunger for a new deal. And that's why, as leader of the Labour Party, I want you to know, I will be your voice, the voice of those who are running to stand still, with the courage to speak up and the humility to listen. Because the time has come again for a new deal, to make Ireland a fairer, kinder, better place. And the Labour Party will lead that change. Why? Because we always have. You see, we have served before, and we will do so again. That is what informs my politics. I'm not interested in running for office just to get elected, or being in government for the sake of it. I am passionate about delivering a real alternative for our people. And by God, do we need that. From the first all in this room over a century ago, Labour has always led that change. We don't just talk about it, you see, we make it happen. And that is our mission, and it is never easy, but it's what distinguishes us as a party. We must be positive about our future, and if we set our minds to it, we can act. And we can win again, just like we did in Dublin Bay South. Because in Ivana Bacik, the Labour Party offered a real social democratic alternative, and the public responded to our positive message, a message of real change rooted in our values. COVID has been the great disruptor. Our expectations of what the state can do for us changed overnight. People have come around to a Labour point of view. Unlike others, we always knew the market couldn't solve everything. But the pandemic showed people why. In a crisis, you expect solutions from the state. If we can act so strongly when we really had to, then why are so many problems still so bad? We can't continue as normal because the Labour Party believes normal was the problem in the first place. People want security in their work and in their homes, a safety net to catch them when a child falls sick or an elderly parent needs care, childcare that doesn't cost more than a mortgage, and universal access to education, respect for our way of life, whether urban or rural, that doesn't pit one against the other, and a plan to save our planet delivered with real urgency. You see, there can be no going back to the way things were before. And it's why this weekend, my party, the Labour Party, is calling for a new deal for Ireland, for workers, for housing, for care and for climate. Because too many people are just about getting by or not at all. Under pressure from the rising cost of living, any surprise, an unexpected medical bill, or extra fuel costs brings worry and distress. Working families should be able to afford a modest holiday, a pizza at the weekend, and be able to change their car every few years. Work must always pay. And we must ensure that people who work or want to work are not struggling to get by and see the Labour Party as their political home. That's the party I will lead. And we will be working with the trade unions to make it a reality. This is core to who we are as Labour people. Bread for all, but there must be roses too. And you know what? It starts with a living wage and full trade union rights for all workers. There is an epidemic of low pay in Ireland, and everyone gets a raw deal in a low-wage republic. Women and young people are affected most. Ireland pays a high price for low pay, and COVID has shown us who we can really depend on in a crisis. Care and retail workers, our cleaners, our delivery drivers, our transport workers, so many essential staff, all deserve more than a bowl of boss. Because you know what? Claps don't pay bills or put food on the table. The latest increase in the minimum wage won't even keep pace with inflation. And the gap with the living wage is only growing. That's why it's time this government used the Low Pay Commission that Labour set up to deliver a living wage once and for all. And the New Deal also means the right to be represented by your trade union in your workplace, because together we are stronger. Countries with more people in trade unions are fairer, and that's a fact. Workers in Ireland need a right to collectively bargain. They need a right to paid sick leave, a right to disconnect, and a right to switch off. But I can assure you, the Labour Party will be relentless in our efforts to secure those rights. So what workers need and what workers deserve is a New Deal that gives them decent pay and protection. And people also need secure housing, because our housing system is fundamentally broken. Young people believe they will never follow in their parents' footsteps with their own forever home. The cost of renting has simply become obscene. The latest government plan is more of the same, tired efforts to pay off private developers. They're setting up a housing commission, but its terms of reference must be radical. We're still not building enough homes. A whole new class of absentee institutional landlords is being created instead. Where is the radical state action to deliver homes? Where is the ban on evictions? Where is the referendum to deliver a right to housing? And where is the rent freeze? I was able to freeze rents for 2 years in 2015. But since then, the Conservative parties in power have allowed record increases. There is no constitutional issue here. I should know. So government, just do it. Ireland also needs a new deal on care that finally delivers on childcare, education and health. At every budget, Labour puts forward our alternative, fully costed proposals, and we're upfront about how we would pay for it. By taxing wealth, not work, and by closing many loopholes. Too many parties are peddling that myth that we can have both tax cuts and public spending. It's a con job. It's total lies. They are lying to the Irish people, pure and simple. Populist nonsense that the Labour Party representatives will always call out. None of us like paying taxes, but we can't have decent services without them. And you can't call yourself a left-wing party if you're against a property tax. Our mission is to deliver services that reduce the burden on working families rather than forcing extra costs on them. This is the reality of Ireland today, and the government is doing little to help. Inaction is the only action they know. We will keep campaigning to put in place universal public childcare schemes. We want equality for children, affordability for families, and fairness for professionals. And we need to cut costs for parents by ending the dreaded voluntary contributions, investing in disadvantage, and giving every child free school books. Now is the time to finally tackle the role of religion in our hospitals and schools too. And our national maternity hospital must be publicly owned and controlled. And our education system made fit for purpose for modern Ireland. We need to change our constitution to recognise all modern families and give citizenship to all children born here in Ireland. But friends, this evening I want to pay tribute to our frontline healthcare workers. Once again, their workplaces tonight are under severe pressure. We must do all we can to help them. We need a commitment that early next year booster shots will be rolled out to everyone, and we must show solidarity with the rest of the world and share our spare vaccines. All of our closest neighbours managed to reward their frontline healthcare workers. Only this shambolic government could mess it up. Trolley numbers continue to rise, and nearly 1 million people are on waiting lists. What kind of country allows a child like Adam Terry wait 4 years for scoliosis surgery? The only answer from government to delays is to shovel more money into profit-making private healthcare services. It's immoral. We're meant to be developing a single-tier health service, not slowly privatising it. If that approach continues, we will never develop the capacity or the skilled workforce we need. The chronic underfunding of our disability services continues. The rollout of Sláinte Care has been neutered and momentum stalled. Labour would ensure a single-tier health service was an absolute priority. And we also can't delay anymore on climate action. Only the state can take the action that is needed to deliver a just transition for workers and families that unites people rather than divides urban and rural communities. We need a new deal on climate change, now, not in 5 years' time. When it comes to retrofitting, forestry, offshore wind and new technologies, it's taken far too long to act. In fact, it's embarrassing, because right now, workers and businesses are paying the price of delay. Fuel costs are spiralling out of control. Those in rural areas with no other option but to drive a car are paying the price. Those waiting on the Metro and Dart Plus are paying the price. Those in poorly insulated homes are paying the price. That's why Labour wants a carbon credit for ordinary working families, and why we're calling for the VAT rate to be cut on fuel for the coming months. The window of opportunity to act is being squandered, and it is a betrayal of the next generation, for my children, Eva and Senan, and yours. Because a generation is being left behind. And just as the pandemic made us question everything, so has Brexit. And that new generation, North and South, are talking about what future our island will look like. What an agreed and united Ireland could look like. And not just for narrow nationalism, but for all who call our island home. Because tens of thousands of people who live here are proud of their Britishness. We cannot pretend otherwise. And we've had enough of Johnson's games on the protocol. It must stop. It's simply putting our peace at risk. Since 1912, the Labour Party has worked to achieve that shared peaceful future. Our starry plough has been an enduring symbol of our journey, and the trade union movement that gave birth to our party has always represented workers from all communities, and we must learn from them. We must learn from their work. Our Labour Party members in Northern Ireland too want to play their part, and I will work with them so that we are ready to stand when the time comes. And Labour will work closely with all those who want to achieve a shared progressive future. It cannot just be left to those who until very recently advocated for sectarian violence. And remember, dialogue means listening as well as speaking. That's why we're at a crossroads. There is a lack of depth in much of Irish politics at the moment. Too much governing by sound bites and leaking. Ministers more concerned with chasing headlines than changing Ireland. And there is a lack of space for reflection and understanding, a lack of political philosophy and intellectual rigour. Our President, Michael D. Higgins, stands out as a true leader. Labour politics and my own politics are grounded in his politics. It's how I was reared. Let me be clear. I am a Republican in the truest sense of the word, but I'm a Social Democrat first. That's what distinguishes me and my colleagues from other parties. When it comes to politicians, we're not all the same. There is a real political choice facing people. Which ideology do you follow? Is it nationalism or is it social democracy? And when you break it all down, what is your biggest priority? I'm a Social Democrat and a proud, proud Irishman who aspires to deliver a united Ireland. But I know what comes first for me. At this moment, I believe that our biggest priority for everyone on this island should be getting a home, getting the medical treatment you need, and providing for your children, whether you live in the East Wall in Dublin or East Belfast. And those priorities must be central to the next election and the next government. And if the Labour Party is to enter government, it will only do so under two conditions. Firstly, will our core policies be implemented? And secondly, can we trust the moral compass of those who aspire to govern with us? Because the tone of political debate really, really matters now. Some parties in the current government think they have a right to always govern, while others in opposition go around arrogantly acting like their ascension to high office next time is just inevitable. Neither are true. You, the people of Ireland, will decide, and there is always a third option, as we proved in the recent by-election win. We have a positive vision for the future of our island, and we will offer a real electoral alternative in the Limerick mayoral election. Because at our core, we believe in always putting people first. And as our very own Michael D. said on the centenary of 1916, a democracy is always and must always be a work in progress. This is why we work together to shape policies, to make Ireland a fairer, kinder, better place. This work is not easy. It takes a vision of where we are going and action to get us there. It challenges us to lead the change and bring everyone with us. We want a new deal for Ireland on housing, on climate, on care and for workers. Come join with the Labour Party, my party, our party, and let's get to work on a new deal for Ireland.
Right.
Knee kiss. Knee kiss. Proper kiss. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important announcements of the evening. Ireland have beaten the All Blacks 29-20. So we have a number of reasons to celebrate.
Hi everybody, I know you're all very excited and energised after our party leader's speech and the news of the All Blacks defeat. However, we still have some very important business to attend to tonight, so I would appreciate if you could take your seats, and we're going to work through our Thirst for Justice Award, the inaugural Cormac O'Brien Award, and then we're going to show you our new political video before closing off with some speeches and presentations. So just another hour to go, but I promise you it'll be an entertaining hour. Thank you all. Kick off.
Folks, can I invite you all to please take your seats as we come to a very important part of conference, which is our annual awards. Okay, thank you very much, folks, for your attention. First of all, can I once again thank our party leader, Alan Kelly, for his incredibly rousing call to action to all the members of the party and for giving us the real razzle-dazzle of the future that we have under his leadership and how we are going to move forward as a party. I now have the immense privilege of presenting our two party awards. I was very happy to be asked to present these awards, as it's always been my favourite part of conference, and I see many people are very excited for who's going to receive the awards tonight. The first award is a long-established tradition in the party, the Thirst for Justice Award. The Thirst for Justice Award is presented to a person, group or organisation which has stood out over the last year as a leader in the fight for fairness and justice in Ireland. Previous recipients include the Dunnes Stores workers, the Together for Yes campaign, and I'm incredibly proud that tonight the Better Maternity Care campaign will be joining that list of recipients. This campaign has been standing for labouring mothers and pregnant people who, in their most medically and emotionally vulnerable hours, have been expected to labour alone in hospital while their partners, relegated to the role of visitor, wait outside in car parks and on the pavement to hear the news of the well-being of their partners and children. Women have been left without the support of their partners through pre-labour pain, without the moral support of their partners, many who serve as advocates for them while they are in labour, and they have been left without the practical support and extra set of hands needed when trying to breastfeed, heal from labour and come to grips with the overwhelming reality of new parenthood. For some, these restrictions have even meant receiving the most tragic and heartbreaking news alone and without a loved one with them to hold their hand, to ask the necessary questions or even to grieve with them. The Better Maternity Care campaign has put the voices of pregnant people and their partners to the fore and have rightly pointed out that a global pandemic is not justification for dehumanising maternity care. Before I invite the recipients up on stage, it would be remiss of me not to reference one of the coordinators of the campaign in a personal capacity. If it were not for Linda Kelly, I would not be here on this stage today. When I was only 17 years old in my first year in UCC, whoop Cork, she came over to me and encouraged me to get involved in the union. And I cannot emphasise the impact that had on my life. And because of her kind words, her encouragement, I'm here today as a senator, able to stand and award her and her colleagues, brilliant campaigners, brilliant activists, this Thirst for Justice Award. So I would like to welcome Linda Kelly, Emma Carroll and Gary Cross here tonight to receive this reward. And I want to acknowledge the campaigners who are not going to be here this evening: Sandy Connolly, Caroline Cumming, Liz Kelly and Siobhan O'Donoghue. So please welcome, give an absolutely enormous Bula Busmore.
Thank you, Annie, for that wonderful speech, although I'll pay you back for reneging on your promise not to make me cry. I am incredibly humbled and a little overwhelmed to accept the Thirst for Justice Award tonight on behalf of the Better Maternity Care campaign. It's a special moment of recognition for all of us, but especially for me as a proud Labour Party member in Cork North Central. Our thanks to Alan, to Billy, Lisa as our new chair and Alison as Lord Mayor for all of your support and kindness around attending conference today. So where do I begin to fill the 10 minutes Billy told me I had? There is so much to say about this campaign that has become a movement, and I would need a couple of days over multiple cups of tea and a few bottles of wine to really do it justice. But for now, I want to talk first about solidarity. In particular, the solidarity shown to us from the Labour Party and what it has meant to us as a campaign. When I heard then Taoiseach and Fine Gael party leader Leo Varadkar use the word solidarity in his address to the nation in March 2020 from Washington, I turned to my husband and said, "We are really in the twilight zone now." The word has been thrown around a lot during COVID, and often by people who do not have an understanding of what it means. And I can tell you, hand on heart tonight, that this party, from its leadership to its members across the country, in all corners of Ireland, understand what solidarity is. In the early summer of 2020, I was fast approaching my due date with my second daughter. The country was opening up, and maternity hospitals in Dublin were relaxing their policies on partner restrictions. But nothing was changing in Cork, the newest maternity hospital in the country. That really puzzled me, so I thought I'll go look at the government roadmap, which had been just published to a lot of fanfare. 64 pages and not one single mention of maternity service. A planned, essential service with over 60,000 patients every year. I obviously then contacted the hospital. I never got a reply. So I turned to Peter Horgan and Sean Sherlock as the Labour TD and office in Cork. And the immediate response was, "How can we help?" And it was somewhat serendipitous a few weeks ago that Peter became the first official gentleman in the antenatal wards in Cork University Maternity Hospital when he welcomed his second child. That response of "how can we help" comes from a place of allyship, and one that is very much framed, in my opinion, from the work that is done and has been done for decades by Labour women. And I see Ellen there. I want to thank you in particular as well for all your support. And to the incredible Hannah Deasy, who has been a huge personal support right throughout this campaign. Peter and Sean's response were the first of many acts of solidarity. At our first campaign event, where we handed in a petition of 60,000 signatures to the HSE, my close friend and constituency colleague John Maher was there to support us. At the Coombe Vigil, Senator Rebecca Moynihan joined us. At our first online rally, our leader, Alan Kelly, joined us and spoke passionately about this issue. All of this before we were popular, all of this before we had a media profile. And on I could go, but I won't keep you here all night. I do, though, have one person to single out who's not here today. That person is Kathleen Lynch. I met Kathleen during the summer at our first outdoor constituency catch-up at a point of real frustration in the campaign, and I picked her political brain. She gave me some guidance, we agreed a course of action, and she put it into action the following week. And that intervention that she made has been pivotal to our success. I won't forget it, and the campaign is indebted to you, Kathleen. Now I know that if Kathleen was here, she'd wave me away like that, as I'm sure would Alan and Rebecca and Adon and Jed, all who have shown such solidarity. Because maybe to you it doesn't seem like a big deal to send a tweet or to write an email or to share a petition. But to us, and to all of us who have experienced these restrictions, those moments of solidarity are the antidote to the deep, deep loneliness that we have experienced in the maternity services. A loneliness that I cannot put into words, but that only those who have experienced it with me know. It empties you. And your acts of solidarity have helped to fill us up. It is the antidote to the dehumanisation from our hospitals who never reply to us. And it is the antidote to a government policy of cruel separation of partners and families at a transformative, vulnerable moment in your life. These restrictions, by the way, are still in place today, which makes this occasion for us bittersweet, because we know that today in Letterkenny and in Waterford, women are still labouring on their own because their hospitals think they don't need to follow national guidelines, and that is not good enough. It is still the case in the main across all maternity units that partners are completely excluded from antenatal care, and that is not good enough. So our campaign, despite significant progress, is not over. And that progress was hard fought for, with shadow reports, compliance checks, multiple media interviews, mobilising online, petitions, emails, representations, and a march outside the Dáil 6 weeks ago. Oh, and we raised €5,000 in less than 24 hours to publish an ad in the Irish Examiner. I'm exhausted even thinking about it. I'm actually not even quite sure how we did it. And we will continue, because we're stubborn, but we will continue, and we know we have your full support, to campaign for a return to pre-pandemic access for one nominated support partner at a minimum. There is another reflection that I would like to leave with you all this evening. Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. This quote from US anthropologist Margaret Mead has always resonated with me, and it's an apt description of the Better Maternity Care campaign. Because at the nexus of this campaign are 6 ordinary women. Emma Carroll, who has given voice to thousands of families through the account In Our Shoes COVID Pregnancy. Sandy Connolly, who keeps our politics right on inclusiveness and support for each other. Liz Kelly, who provides expert guidance on all issues related to maternity. Siobhan O'Donoghue, Executive Director of Uplift, who sets our goals and keeps us moving. And Caroline Cumming, who started it all with a petition and continues to be the positive lifeblood of the campaign. We are not superheroes. We are just like you, managing busy lives and families, work, love, education, you name it, we're doing it too. We started this campaign simply by deciding no. I will not accept this standard of care. I will ask for better, and I will demand more for the women and the families that are coming after me. And we are incredibly supported as a campaign by our own North Stars. Joe, Gary, who's here, Brian, Stephen, Mark, and our family circles, who cheerlead us constantly to use our collective strength to fight this fight. It has been transformative for us, as we've been joined by an absolute galaxy of families across the country on this journey, and working together with everybody to demand a universe where we are all treated better. So if I can impart anything, let it be this. Apathy is the drug the status quo and old Ireland thrives on, and we need to kick the habit. I promise, I really am very close to the end, but I want to mention one more person, and Alan got there first. but someone I was lucky enough to meet at the last Labour Party conference I attended, and that person is Vicky Phelan. After my first experience of the Irish maternity services pre-COVID, I lost my voice, I lost my confidence, and I lost my belief in myself. Seeing Vicky Phelan hold the state to account by using her incredible voice and by standing in her power and her truth is a lesson to all of us, but especially to all of us who are women. When we speak out, the change is transformative, the legacy is impactful, and our society is renewed. So in tribute to Vicky, I leave you with this poem, Legacy, from the Canadian poet Rupi Kaur. I stand on the sacrifices of 1 million women before me, thinking, what can I do to make this mountain taller so the women after me can see further? Greibh míle maith go léir.
I have to say, when Linda said that we are not superheroes, that they are not superheroes, I don't think Linda and I have ever disagreed on anything before, but I absolutely, unconditionally disagree with that statement. Linda and the campaigners in the Better Maternity Care campaign are my superheroes, they are the Labour Party superheroes, and quite frankly, they are the nation's superheroes, so please give them one more big hand. I now am going to move on to the Cormac O'Brien Activist of the Year Award. I'm immensely proud to present this next award. This award is presented to an activist under the age of 30 who has made an outstanding contribution to social justice activism. The winner is selected by Labour Youth, and it is dedicated in memory of Cormac, who passed away tragically in 2019 while he was serving as chair of Labour Youth. This is the inaugural award to honour Cormac's memory and acknowledge not only his activism, but how he encouraged and supported activists younger than himself. Before we announce the recipient, I'd like to acknowledge the O'Brien family who are here with us this evening. Cormac's parents, Lou and Eva, you are so very, very welcome here tonight, and I want you to know how much of an inspiration Cormac was and continues to be to all of us in Labour, especially us young members, although I might be pushing young member now a little bit. His commitment to social justice and dedication to the party was remarkable, as was his kindness, intelligence, friendship, which I know was dearly valued by many in Labour. We all desperately miss Cormac, and we are proud to remember him tonight, as we will for the years to come at Labour Party Conference. I want to just quickly reflect on the first time that I met Cormac. It was when I was working in the Michael G. Higgins campaign, and he came in. He was doing his Leaving Cert, I believe, and this incredible, remarkable young man came in, and we were just blown away by him. He was so enthusiastic, he was so committed, he was working 20 times harder than the rest of us, and he was studying for his exams. And I remember just thinking, we are so lucky to have young people like him shining a light for us, and I was just blown away by him. I'm also immensely proud to present this award to a more than worthy recipient. Kieran Freeman is a campaigner, an activist, and a third-year general nursing student who has been a key figure in the campaign for student nurses and midwives to receive fair payment for their hard work during the COVID-19 pandemic. Anyone who knows me knows how close of an issue this is to my heart. Our student nurses and midwives have played a key role in keeping our health service running for years. However, their presence on wards and hospitals during the COVID-19 pandemic placed them on the front lines of a health crisis, which was daunting to nurses and doctors who had decades of experience. Yet those student nurses and midwives rose to the occasion, and they did more than their fair share in getting us through this pandemic. In the face of all their work and the fact that they are not paid, even the most minimum basic of wages is absolutely disgraceful. I just want to take a moment to reflect of the incredible nurses who held hands of some of our loved ones, who held hands of our friends, who were the people who were there on their last moments during this pandemic. And I want to, from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure from the bottom of many people's hearts here tonight, thank those student nurses for the incredible, selfless time and work they gave to our loved ones, friends and family. However, the injustice of not being paid is not one that these student nurses and midwives have allowed go unanswered, as activists such as Kieran, in addition to studying and working through this pandemic, has spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours campaigning on behalf of student nurses and midwives all over the country to receive pay for their work. I want to congratulate Kieran. I want to congratulate the student nurses and midwives and the movement who are still fighting for pay. Let it not be forgotten that Minister Stephen Donnelly has not yet sorted out the issue of pay for student nurses and midwives. And I want all of us at this conference to put a hand together and to let you know that the Labour Party has your back, that all of us here at conference, both in person and online, have your back, and we are not going to let this issue fall off the table. Kieran, I'd love to welcome you up, and thank you so much.
Thanks very much, everybody. It's an honour to be, I suppose, brought up here tonight, and I'm collecting this award not really on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the 4,500 student nurses and midwives across Ireland that are still, like myself, out on placement, out in college, trying to further their education and trying to, I suppose, support and bolster the HSE on a day-to-day basis. As we continue to go through some particularly difficult times, I suppose we always think we're over the worst of it, and then another news article releases and we're back into it again. So I'd like to also just thank you for giving this honour of the inaugural award to us student nurses and midwives as well. I never met Cormac myself, I never knew him, but I've heard plenty of him from activists and members like yourselves, and I just know that it would have only been a matter of time until I met him, and I'm sure I would have been very, very fond of him. So I'd like to just, kind of thank you all for kind of giving us that honour. And I wasn't quite as prepared as Linda was with a speech. I have it on my phone. No, would you believe I was on a train up from Galway earlier today, and it got delayed for an hour, so I used that to write a speech. So I'd like to thank the government for poor public transport services. And I'd also like to thank you for the chance to talk to you about our campaign, should I say, and my involvement in it. And it's probably the first time I've gotten to preach to, the converted about it. I'm not trying to convince you about anything, but I want to kind of really reinforce what we were trying to get across throughout it, why it's not finished yet, and what it really means for the island of Ireland as opposed to just the student nurses and midwives. Obviously, for us, our campaign it really started back in February of 2020 when the first coronavirus case was discovered in Ireland. And I remember being in University Hospital Galway on placement when we got word that the first case of COVID in the West had been diagnosed in our hospital. And I remember originally being pulled from placement based out of caution, and then about 3 weeks later we were informed that we were to attend our placements as normal, and that was back before the masks were a thing, before we knew anything about the virus, and we were told to go back to placement, and we did, despite seeing news reports of incidents like Italy and New York where hospitals were overflowing and people and healthcare workers were really becoming affected by the virus. you know, you all really understand why we're doing this, but I think I really want to emphasize the change that has to come. And for that, I want to use the word value, or specifically the verb to value, and how Ireland as a whole, not only the government, but as a whole, how we value the contribution of nursing and midwifery to, I suppose, to our everyday lives and what it really means to us. Sorry now, I wish I was like Linda. Yeah. So when we look at how we've been valued over the last year, it's come from people like yourselves that we know that most of Ireland really does value us, really does understand their contribution. But from a policy perspective, I think value doesn't have any a value itself, I suppose. It doesn't mean anything without action behind it as well. So we look at how things have progressed since February of last year, and we look at how, I suppose, back in September of 2020, where we sat down with the Minister for Health, Stephen Donnelly at the time, and we asked him to review our allowances. For those who don't know, I get exactly 0 euros in allowances at the minute, and I suppose he's just increased that by 15%, so 15% on 0 is probably still 0. I'm not sure about the maths. But the Department of Health conducted an internal review into our allowances, and they found that there was no need to increase our allowances. So that spoke to us as unvalued, because that was an action they took that was unvalued. About 2 months after that, we saw the vote in the Dáil on pay for student nurses and midwives, where the government used their whip to completely vote down any chance of us being paid from that moment on. And that spoke to us as a value-based thing. And then when we had our I suppose the pandemic placement grant of €100 was announced after an independent review last year in December, and that took about 7 months to be implemented and meant absolutely nothing to us once we got it, because we'd already gotten through our placements. You know, that spoke to us as a value that we weren't worth adequate allowances put in. And this isn't a problem that's going away. When you tell student nurses and midwives they're not valued and they're not respected within the healthcare system, that doesn't go away once we qualify, once we get registered as nurses and midwives. We will find somewhere else that values us and respects our professions. And if that place isn't Ireland, then that place isn't Ireland. And currently, that place is not Ireland. 65% of nurses and midwives, 65% of the health service, the clinical frontline staff of the health service are nurses and midwives, and we are not retaining our nurses and midwives. And going forward, we are not even showing them the respect and the value that they need to know that Ireland is a home and that the health service is a home. So that's really, really important, that going forward we can manage to maintain that trust in the student nurses and to invest in them. Sorry now. Each student nurse and midwife does deserve a future in Ireland, and I think we can all agree that you shouldn't be so cynical of your placement experience that after you qualify you look to other countries as the grass is greener on the other side alternative. And I want to, I suppose, give you a scenario that every student nurse and midwife, and I suppose probably everyone in the world has encountered in their life at some stage. It's when you work a 13-hour shift, so you've gotten up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you've gotten public transport to the hospital, you've gone and done a whole day, a 13-hour shift of an unpaid placement, and then you get the bus back to your house. And I can tell you, this was me last night. You go into your room, the lights are still off, it's dark, it's cold because you haven't had a chance to turn the heating on, and you turn around and you put your back against the wall, and you just sit down there, and all the world is outside your door while you're reckoning with yourself. And I want each student nurse and midwife that does that in the future not to be worried about where their next meal is coming from, where their next, where the money's coming from for their rent, because the current government is very fond of backdating adequate allowances, and I've never met a landlord in my life who takes backdated rent. So that's again, that speaks to us as student nurses and midwives, and every time we're approached or supported by the likes of yourself, it speaks to us, and it really does reinforce the drive to keep going with this campaign. Because even recently we had the protest outside the Dáil just to get the release of a report that was completed back in August. So the attitude and valuing of us hasn't really changed in the last 2 years at all. And I want to just leave with a small quote. It's a quote by someone very important to myself, which is me. And it's that going forward, there's no healthcare in Ireland without nurses and midwives, and there's no nurses and midwives without the student nurses to become them. So I really, really implore you in every aspect of your life, both within labour and outside of it, to amplify student nurses, amplify our voices, amplify our campaign, and involve yourself with it where possible. Thank you very, very much.
So thank you so much, Kieran, and all of the student nurses and midwives. No happy birthday to him. Up the student nurses and midwives. We'll be taking no more of the guff from the government on this. Just once again, thank both of our award recipientees for coming here today, for travelling to conference, for joining us and for sharing your words with us. We in the Labour Party are so inspired by the campaigning and the activism and the changing of the world that you are doing every single day. And from the bottom of my heart and everyone here in this room, I want to once again thank you for all of the work that you are doing. As you know, at 5 to 9 tonight, we will have a short video going out on RTE television. And I would tell you to set your clock so you can watch it, but actually you get a little sneak preview here. Woo! So I'm going to get off the stage and I'm going to let you see the video that we are going to have going out this evening on behalf of the Labour Party, on behalf of the PLP, on behalf of the membership. It'll be on RTE at 5 to 9 tonight, but enjoy the sneak preview now. Thank you so much.
We are the Labour Party. We believe in Ireland, our home. It's inside us. It's the meitheal that binds us together. For over 100 years, we've been building a fairer Ireland, always believing in our people, in our republic, and all the things that make life worthwhile. Bread for all, and roses too. Step by step, piece by piece, Le Chéile, Ireland has become a fairer country. But our republic is unfinished, and real change is still needed. The pandemic stripped things bare, living through the worst of times, brought out the best in us. Now, we're at a crossroads, and there can be no going back. The change we need won't happen by chance. Change is always a choice. The choice is this: more of the same, or a fresh start for all our people.
Well, in Ireland today, there are so many people who need a New Deal. Those who are suffering disadvantage, who are experiencing inequality, who are experiencing poverty. But actually, we all need a New Deal to make a fairer, more equal and more just society.
We know that it was our public servants and our public services that got us through the worst of this pandemic. And this should tell us that what we need now is greater investment in our public services to make sure that Ireland can become the country we know it can be.
There's systemic inequality here that's affecting many groups. We need to close the gap in this country. And a New Deal for workers, for people with disabilities, for older people, for people on the housing list, for people looking to buy a home, for people looking for security to rent a home. That's who Labour want to work for.
I suppose what gets me out of bed in the morning is looking at those people whose society has failed. This country has failed. And we have to do better as a society.
Childcare, education, our hospital system, these are things that can only be solved with public investment. And the reality that you can't live in a low-tax economy and expect excellent public services.
I want to see a New Deal for renters, so they have secure, affordable housing, and we recognise that this is a situation that people are living in at the moment, and I want to see renters' rights come really onto the agenda.
If you look around, you will see in many of the estates that we have, there is a derelict house or a vacated house. That needs to be turned into a social house, it needs to be developed into an affordable house, and it needs to be done now.
I think the pandemic has had a huge impact on young people, from their mental health and their sense of well-being to how they feel respected and involved in their community and society. And I think, to be honest, if we don't get to grips with how we treat young people, how we respect young people, and what future we see for young people in this country, Ireland's going to be no country for young people.
To be a socialist is to be an environmentalist. We understand that this is not an argument for the rich, this is an argument for everybody. And just like all the lessons we learned in COVID, that unless we protect everybody, we protect nobody.
A New Deal for me would look like fare structures on public transport that would be competitive. We need to get people out of their cars and onto buses and onto trains.
I've huge issues in relation to how people can't get access to healthcare. I've huge issues when I see people of my generation and younger not being able to buy a house. I have huge issues when I see so many people contacting me this year that they can't afford to go to third level. I have huge issues with childcare. I believe we should nationalise childcare services. These are real issues for me. I believe we need to offer the same services to everybody, not based on means, but based on need, and giving all children and everybody an equal chance in life. That's what motivates me.
We believe in an Ireland that values care, climate, work and housing, where everyone is treated with respect, with dignity, with understanding. It's time for a new deal for a fairer, kinder, more caring Ireland. Together, we can make it happen.
We need a new deal for Ireland on housing, on climate, on care and for workers.
I believe in an Ireland that invests in all our people, puts an end to disadvantage, and puts equality of opportunity at its heart.
A society that invests in our future, an Ireland that works.
Come join with the Labour Party, our party, my party, and let's get to work on a new deal for Ireland.
Okay, comrades, we're nearly there. First off, I'd just like to say well done to Paddy Cole on that excellent video. And okay, comrades, brothers and sisters, I'd like, to start off by thanking conference, the members and constituencies for your support in being elected to the role of party chairperson. It is a huge honour to take on this role, and in particular to come after a real Labour leader, Jack O'Connor. As we move to close this event and contemplate another integral aspect of conference business, the opportunity to have a post-conference pint or 5, and to catch up with comrades and friends, I've been asked to say a few words before we formally close the conference. As we know, comrades, and as we have discussed extensively over the past 2 days, we are currently gripped with a wide range of societal issues which have a direct correlation with the inability of every citizen to be able to participate within society in a meaningful way. We know there are startling health inequalities which are having grave and fatal effects and are more pronounced on a socio-economic basis. COVID has demonstrated the unacceptable two-tier healthcare system. There are other huge structural issues in Irish society around public housing, unaffordable rents, indecent living standards, the exceptional cost of childcare and the low pay conditions affecting early educators within it, inability to access affordable elder care, and colossal issues in respect to the biodiversity loss and climate breakdown. As the Labour Party and as the political entity to the Labour movement, we know these systemic issues have a severe effect on the worker, on working people, on families and on communities. It prohibits our ability to be an active citizen and weighs in favour of the wealthy and the elite when working people are locked out of citizenship in such a way and when there's no real social floor to which any citizen should fall below. However, we also know that we live in one of the richest countries in the world, fourth richest in the OECD 28. We live in a country that has exceptional wealth, affluence and means for some, with most of us having no idea or understanding of what that means. Despite our nation's wealth, there's no real effect of that in our general living standards and conditions or on the services the majority of us rely on. Really, what most in Ireland understand is that we are a low-pay economy coupled with precarious employment and insecurity around ours. We know through the tireless work and efforts and campaigning by the Irish Congress of Trade Unions that 1 in 5 workers in Ireland are low paid. This is one of the highest rates of low paid work in Europe, and we know too that women, young people and migrants are most likely to be affected by these poor working conditions. We live in a society where a worker on the minimum wage of $10.20 per hour working a 37-hour working week would come out with an annual salary of $19,600. The average rent in Dublin, while varying, is about $24,000 a year. While we carry the title of a rich and wealthy economy, the reality for those trying to simply exist within it is so far off. In Labour and Irish history, Connolly outlined that the socialist philosophy of history provides the key to the problem. It points to the economic development as the true solution. While we have seen great advancements on social injustices, and which we know there's still much more to do in respect to the archaic references in the Constitution, in respect to a woman's role within the home, the real means to emancipation is through the economic prism. While we know what the main issues are, it is the responsibility of the Labour Party to harness our messaging to connect our egalitarian views of society back out in an understandable, visionary and energising way. We have heard over the past 2 days some of the Labour Party's solutions and ideas for achieving a more equal and more just Ireland. As party members and activists, we have a clear understanding of what kind of society we want to see possible and which our elected representatives continue to articulately outline and express a clear Labour vision. We know that this is possible and which was displayed through the exceptional campaign that was ran to elect Ivana Bacik to the Dáil. Importantly, this election showed a real connection towards our Labour vision. This was an important campaign in many ways, not only to elect the fantastic Ivana Bacik, but also because it drives a way forward for us. What was incredible about the recent campaign was the number of activists, young and old, I hope activists don't mind me using that word either, who made it happen. We proved that by working together we can and will come back from the challenges of the last few years. Working with all of you, my job as chair is to help make that happen again and again. As a party, we believe in strong and robust public services predicated on universalism and full participation through an equipped public sector with decent staffing numbers, decent funding and strong workers' rights. As a Labour Party, we are unique in that we know what the solutions are to a universal public model. I was privileged to have attended the ICTU biennial conference 2 weeks ago, where our brothers and sisters in the trade union movement were also talking about the issues we've discussed and spoken about today and yesterday. They spoke about strong public services predicated on universalism. Importantly, they made the explicit connection to achieving this with the fundamental need to look at the distribution of wealth in our country and named the need to have wealth taxes and instead of eroding the tax base, building it so we can create that social floor that as socialists we all believe in. Fundamentally, we all know in the Labour Party that the most effective tool at really redistributing wealth is through collective bargaining. We need to continue as the political wing of the Labour movement to advocate, campaign and ensure that the deliverance of collective bargaining legislation which will equip workers with the ability to rebalance the odds that are set against them. It has always been the Labour Party who has stood to the front on these issues, and we will continue to hold our space and to represent the interests of working people. We do it because we are Labour. We are the party of vision, of principle and of delivery. It is not our job to simply say what's popular. It is our job to make popular what needs to be said. Whether that's on the need to pay for investment in our public services, the need for fair taxes on corporations and wealthy individuals, or the need to face up to the difficult decisions required to go beyond targets and make the changes needed to create a zero carbon economy and society. Before formally finishing up, if you'll allow me, I'd like to speak very briefly about two people. The first is the outgoing Treasurer, Gina Doolan. Gina has given a huge commitment to the party in her capacity as party treasurer over the past 10 years. Gina has also left a legacy behind her that will stand there for many years with a building that stands proudly on Ainger Street. So thank you very much, Gina, for all of your contributions to the party. I also want to speak about the outgoing chairperson, Jack O'Connor. Jack is someone who I've gotten to know extremely well over this past year, where he corralled me into the role of chairperson of Labour Trade Unionist, and I haven't looked back since. He is someone who I remain deeply inspired by his commitment to the Labour movement and his absolute dedication to the struggle for a better life for all working people. Jack also selflessly gives as much guidance, support and encouragement to others to ensure a real collective effort and building of a movement. Jack has been and continues to be a leader and a giant not only in the Labour Party but in the Labour movement. In my own engagement with constituencies over the past number of months, members and activists spoke about Jack in a way that entirely sums up his presence within the movement, with many remarking that Jack is Labour. Jack has worked tirelessly without a want for thanks, but I'm going to make sure you get it now, Jack, for recognition in ensuring the success of Connolly's party, and he stood strong with the party over many challenging times and continued to use his national profile and standing to outline and emphasise Labour's continued influence, importance and the legacy which the party will and continue to have for working people. At times, I'm sure it was not easy for Jack to remain loyal and committed, but he did it because it was the right thing to do, and because of his steadfast commitment to ensuring that the party of Connolly remains as relevant to today and to continue the efforts to build our movement. Jack has inspired many party members and trade unionists. Having had the opportunity to speak to many constituencies in my own campaign to contest party chair, I had the opportunity to hear about the gratitude and sincerity in respect to Jack's direction and influence, not only in reinvigorating the constituencies locally, but in organising the party. Jack not only had an impact on local party structures, but he's been integral in bringing national attention to the ongoing commitment of the Labour Party to ensure and deliver for working people. Jack has a clear and precise vision as to how this needs to be achieved, but he's provided a critical perspective on occasions, and which is a deeply required trait in a healthy democratic structure. As most of us know, Jack has a quick wit and leaves an impression on all that he meets and engages with. It certainly will be no easy task to follow in the footsteps of a Labour leader like Jack, but as the saying goes, on the shoulder of giants we stand on. So I'd like to just ask Billy Sparks to come up because we're going to give, and Alan to give a brief presentation, but we're also going to ask Jack, now I've sprung this on Jack only a short while ago, to give his words to formally close the conference, which I think is only right and appropriate as the outgoing chairperson of the party.
Comrade Chair and comrades. As a lifelong trade unionist and as a democratic socialist, I want to salute our new party chairperson, Lisa Kelly, who is equally a conviction trade unionist and a democratic socialist, and I want to wish her well in the onerous task I have been party to persuading her to undertake for the years to come. I want as well to thank my fellow officers over the period for which I have acted in the role of chairperson of our party. I want to thank the Vice Chairperson, Sinead Ahern, who is somewhat unwell at the moment, and to wish her well. I want to thank the party treasurer, Gina Doolan, for her 10 years in the role of treasurer, a difficult role always anywhere in the Labour movement. And I want as well to thank the previous General Secretary, Brian McDowell, with whom it was my pleasure to serve for a period when I first became chair. And I want to very much wish all the best to our current General Secretary, Billy Sparks. I want as well to wish all the best and all the success possible to the party leader, Alan Kelly, and to congratulate him on the very fine and substantial speech, courageous speech, which he delivered here early this evening. Well, I hope you will all forgive me for dwelling for a moment on the person who was party leader when I first became chair and who was party leader for the most of my time in the chair. And I want to say that while I do agree with Alan that the heroic Tom Johnson is undoubtedly the most underappreciated figure in Irish political history, I do believe that our comrade Brendan Howlin is very much the most underappreciated figure in modern Irish history. Because the fact of the matter is, comrades, and I have not always agreed with him, as he well knows, no one played a more significant role in the struggle for our national economic independence after it was forfeited by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin and the Green Party when they voted for the bank guarantee. And he went on, as you know, to undertake the difficult task of party leader in the most difficult of times. And he is a person whose contribution to the interests of the people for which this party was founded has been exceeded by none. And I want to say that it was a privilege to serve as chairperson with him and to extend him all the best for the years to come. And as I'm vacating the stage, I want to leave you with one or two remarks. The first is this. I joined this party in September of 1976. And I have had many, many differences with people in this party. Most often the leaders of the party. And I have oftentimes been frustrated and disappointed. But most often because I did not really understand, until I became a trade union leader myself, the difficult choices with which they were faced. But I never, ever, ever did consider leaving the party or damaging it in any way. And I never... And I never did so, because despite the degree to which I searched my brain to find easy ways out, and ways that I could tell people what they wanted to hear, when I really should be telling them what they needed to know, I had to face the reality that this party of ours, despite its many mistakes and failings, has been to the forefront of every incremental step that has been achieved in the battle for equality in Ireland since 1912. And I've always had to face the reality as well that every single time without exception, when our party was faced with the choice between its own electoral possibilities and the interests of the people, our party, Connolly's party, always elected to stand for the interest of the people. There are others, of course, to be fair, because we do not have a monopoly of good people. All parties have good people, well-intended people, and some of them even have some selfless people. But none of them, while they can say we stood for the people once or twice or 3 times, none of them can say that every single time that they were presented with the choice that they stood for the interests of the people against their own electoral interests. And the other inconvenient truth with which I have been faced is that every time I've sought to scurry out to easier pastures, every single time I've been faced with the reality that all socialists have to face, which is that notwithstanding our mistakes, our errors, our disappointments, and our deficiencies, if we go on splitting and setting up new parties and looking for easier routes, we'll never achieve the tasks for which Connolly established our party. And given my lifetime of telling inconvenient truths, I want to utter one now at this point, and it's this. I want to refer you to a motion which was adopted unanimously here earlier in the name of the trade union section, which called on us to be open to the possibility of building a common platform with others on the left, because that is essential if we are to wrest control of the hegemony of the Irish political landscape from the parties of the nationalist tradition. Those same parties who, despite the fact that they were all owed their origins to the struggle for national independence, bear the burden of responsibility and are guilty of the forfeiture of our national economic independence when they voted for the bank guarantee. Accompanied, by the way, as passengers by the Greens. And we have to think in terms of what we can do to build common cause with others who did not vote for that bank guarantee, which we alone, as a political party in Parliament, opposed on that historic day. We have to be open to reach out to those, irrespective of whether they describe themselves as democratic socialists or social democrats or people on the independent left. And we have to be able to extend the hand of friendship and open the possibility of the building of a common programme to wrest control of the hegemony of the political landscape from the parties of the nationalist tradition. And I urge our incoming executive and our incoming leader to take seriously the essence of the motion which was passed today, historically, by the way, by the custodians of the legacy of the founders of this party, the trade union section, to be open to the possibility of building a common platform with others on the left. And I want to leave you with this. I want to say that whatever energy I have left, whatever possibility I have left, I will apply myself with every morsel of my being. If I can find others within this party and elsewhere on the left who are prepared to work to bring about that common platform, to shift the agenda of Irish politics from the interests of the better off to the interests of the people for which Connolly founded this party. I salute you all. I love you all.
And there you go. It wouldn't have been a full conference. We didn't get that rousing speak from our outgoing party chair, Jack O'Connor. And thank you for everything, Jack. So I have one announcement to make, which is that the raffle tickets are going to be pulled out, and Ellen O'Sullivan is going to leave the prizes with the names on them at the end of the hall. And now I would like to invite Councillor Rob O'Donoghue to sing us all out and to officially close conference. And I would just like to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming along this weekend, for engaging with conference, for obeying all the rules and regulations around COVID, and I wish you all a nice evening. So, Councillor Rob O'Donoghue, please.
How are you? It's always easy following Jack. Jeez. All right, the red flag, all 17 verses. In the style of Billy Bragg this year. No, the next year, if you have me back. Okay. The people's flag is deepest red, it shelters off our martyred dead. And ere its limbs grew stiff and cold, our heart's blood dyed its every fold. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. The Frenchman there, he loves the blaze, the sturdy German sings his praise. In Moscow vaults its hymns are sung, Chicago swells the surging throng. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It waved above our infant might when all around was dark as night. It was many a deed and vow, we mustn't change its colour now. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It suits today the meek and base, whose minds are filled with pelf and place, to cringe before the rich man's frown and haul the sacred emblem down. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. With heads uncovered, swear we all to bear it onwards till we fall. From dungeons dark and gallows grim, the song will be our parting hymn. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards flinch and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. Allez les Verts! See you next year. Thanks, guys.